goes towards Owen Roy, brilliant save indeed! Walsh has scored! Leicester City are in dreamland now! Vardy in the middle, this could be a huge moment! Vardy scored! And it's pandemonium in Leicester!
Mahrez with his left, Albrighton with his right, it is Mahrez, it's a good ball in, Morgan's there, it's in! Leicester City score! It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies! Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League! 5,000 to 1.
Good morning and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses for Good Morning Foxes. Another weekend not ruined by Leicester City losing a game of football, which is always positive. Although it was almost ruined by manager news, but there's some conflicting reports on that. We'll probably speak about that a bit later on. Before we get into it all, Manny, mate, what's going on with you? What shirt have you got on today, mate? What you got?
Well, if you've been following the Club World Cup, you saw Flamengo beat Chelsea this week. And did you see they put a post out on X saying Chelsea's just a small neighbourhood in London, which is quite amusing. And I have a 23-year-old Flamengo shirt because I went to watch Flamengo at the Maracanã when I was a young lad.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. There we go. Kate, how are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm wearing this season's Zara, just for any of you that are interested. But yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. I'm loving the hot weather. I know you're not so keen, lots, but yeah, I'm loving the heat at the minute. It makes you feel better.
Yeah, I don't mind it until about 7 o'clock at night when it should be a lot cooler and it's just not, and it's just still very hot and sticky and yeah. Anyway, struggling to sleep and all of that. Doc, what's going on with you, mate? How are you?
It's hot in Denmark as well. That's all I can say. I finally got on summer vacation, so that's nice at the very least. I'm able to, take my mind off uni and focus on the real important things in life. Leicester, sadly though, there isn't much to speak about there, right? I think with the manager news at the very least, I'm at the point now where with all these conflicting reports, I won't believe anything unless Percy says anything or, the news is dropped on Twitter by Leicester themselves.
Yes, it is. I think it's. I'll tell you what. Let's just start with a very small bit of this because all the comments are about it. Just a quick one. So Zaid says, "Good morning, Sean Dyche, Blue Army." Buzz says Dyche is more pragmatic than we think, and I'd give him a shot if he played our youth. Track record says he doesn't play youth, so I would 100% dodge. Cameron Capel said Sean Dyche is a good option if we can buy anyone. And just have to work with what we've got. If we can't buy anyone and just have to work with what we've got. Travel 6 says Dyche will be a club legend like Pearson. And yeah, Azola says we will see. I mean, just, before we talk about the actual topic today, which is some of the youth players, I'm not going to come to Manny first because I know what he's going to fucking say. But Kate, conflicting reports, as always with Leicester at the moment. It's like a journalist tug-of-war. You've got The Sun and Alan Nixon saying that Sean Dyche is lined up to take over on the 1st of July. Then you've got Alex Crook from TalkSport saying that he believes Sean Dyche isn't lined up, and that's not true. Rob Tanner's been on Jack's channel recently saying that, as far as he's aware, there is no Dyche lined up, and he'd be surprised if Dyche comes. What do you make to it all, Kate? Again, this is probably just because they haven't announced anything for so long. It is just going to be a tug-of-war of journalists saying one thing and another one saying the other until it's actually confirmed by the club.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm with Duck. I'm kind of just sitting there until actually somebody that we know is credible breaks any kind of news or gives any kind of update. I think there's so much talk about it that rumours create rumours, and people do just jump on the bandwagon. And there's a herd mentality about some of this sometimes because they don't want to be seen to not be saying it. So that's what I think is happening at the moment. I don't think there's actually any more news or information that we would have known a month ago. It's just that the whole Sean Dyche thing has gone really quiet in terms of rumours for any roles, and the same with Danny Roll. Like, I don't really know why that's gone quiet either, really. So yeah, I'm with Duck. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yes, Doc, over to you, mate. I mean, I know I was speaking to you yesterday, and I know you saw the thing that Jacob did for us yesterday. He was he should be in Sean Dyche's bloody entourage. He was selling him as much as he could. But what do you make to it all, Doc? Because it's just again another. Yeah, I mean, it was similar to last year when Fabrizio Romano said, "Oh, it's Graham Potter," and then it's Cooper, and then. One big mess.
Yeah, I think the underlying thing I can take away from the positive from this is with all the reports now coming up, it seems like something is actually happening behind the scenes at the club, right? There was a good few weeks where we heard realistically nothing. So hopefully, at the very least, work is being done. I think I'll say this first because I do actually like Sean Dyche as a person, as a personality. I think he's been fun to watch in interviews back when he was with Burnley. To be fair, I think he's done well to keep up teams who weren't good enough to stay up, to make them stay up in the Premier League. I can't say anything about how he would work in the Championship, but I can say it's not an inspiring appointment, right? It's not something that will get me off my feet, excited for how he will develop Monger into the next star and, turn Ben Nelson into the next starting England centre-back and all of these things, right? It's not an excitement appointment. I think it would be, a fine appointment, and I'll be open to see what he can do when he is the dominant side and not a side who has to sit deep. But yeah, time will tell. I'm waiting for more reliable reports. But yeah, I mean, my first choice definitely wouldn't be Sean Dyche.
Manny, mate. So there was one of the later reports was TalkSport, which again, pinch of salt because they did say Russell Martin was coming. They said Leicester's director of football, John Rodkin, has been pushing for Sean Dyche to replace Ruud van Nistelrooy. And to offer some added context there as well, in the podcast that Dyche did with Lineker, Dyche said that he knew Rodkin and he was friends with Rodkin because they knew each other from a while back. So this could be another one of these, Rodkin-led appointments if it happened, because we heard that with Cooper. Later on in the season, we heard from Percy that Rodkin had pushed for Cooper, and Top wasn't really keen on it, and now it seems to be happening again, allegedly.
That's the key word, isn't it? Allegedly. 1 minute it was definitely going to be Russell Martin this week, next week. Then it was going to be Danny Rolls, the favourite. Now it's Sean Dyche. I just think it's journalists trying to write articles because they've got nothing else to speak about. And where did this latest iteration of Dyche come from? Was it the Sun?
Yesterday, yep. Because obviously there were all those rumours all week from everywhere. There's been Dyche rumours, and then it was the Sun, Alan Nixon, who is flaky with his report. I mean, he did call Ayew to Leicester, so he gets the good ones right, of course.
Hit or miss, right? Hit or miss.
I mean, the Sun is hardly the bastion of truth, is it? And I don't think anybody, like any journalist out there, has some direct pipeline to Rodkin or Top. They've always kept their cards very close to their chest. We always only find out pretty much when it happens. We don't find out a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance. And all these rumours are just Chinese whispers, isn't it? It's just people, I saw him in the car park. He was definitely having a chat. Yeah, my mate's mum's a dinner lady at Seagrave. I'm like, come on. This is all pretty thin stuff. So, but there is a good side to it, because when these horrific potential managers are linked to us, it gives us the forum to go out there and explain why it's such a daft idea to do something like this in the first place.
You know what the worrying thing is, though, Manny, this time, is that there are a lot of people who are getting excited about it online, which is the complete opposite to, Russell Martin was like, it was like clear that the fans weren't going to be happy. But honestly, every time I go online and read some stuff, it's a Leicester fan saying, yes, get him in, he's going to sort the club out and all this.
The majority of Leicester City fans do not live online.
Careful.
Online, on your little Twitter sphere. It's loads of people are out there who have their opinions that don't air it. So
No, you're talking about a forum. You're talking about people who online have their say. And I'm saying that a lot of them are saying that they want Dyche.
Well, everyone can have their own idea about how the game should be played and what's good for the club. And they have this fallacy that Dyche would be a good stepping stone, a bridge to the promised land. But that's never happened anywhere. He never left Burnley and somebody took on Dyche's work and moved it on. Moyes has had a little peak with Everton, but Everton have spent hundreds of millions of pounds over the years and obviously have that new stadium and are a different category. They've never, ever got relegated from... Is it never, not even the Premier League, but never from top flight football, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't give somebody too much credit for keeping a club that's never ever got relegated to 17th, 16th. I mean, you literally can't finish lower with that team.
No,
so,
but it's becoming a bit. That's a bit of a disingenuous argument, though. Because just because they haven't been relegated before doesn't mean that they could, right? Like that Everton squad a few years ago when we ended up going down. We're battling, a Leicester City side that should never have been anywhere near the relegation zone as well. Like, just because the pedigree of the club isn't a history for getting relegated, yes, maybe you could use that in the mental of the players to say, we shouldn't be going down, we're too good for this or whatever, but I think it's a bit disingenuous just because the history...
No, but what I mean is the previous managers of Everton, Frank Lampard was there before. Did Frank Lampard finish any margin much different to where Dyche was?
They were going down with
he took over from Lampard.
He took over from Lampard.
Okay, but the season that Lampard did have in charge previously, I mean, if Dyche was particularly good, why did... forget the question. Like, Burnley fans, I know Jacob was on the other day singing his virtues, and Everton fans have been warning us en masse. But if he was particularly good, why did those clubs sack him? And in Burnley's case, sack him, after he'd done such a great job for them historically. There comes a point where the club go, actually, this does not work. And interestingly, particularly in Burnley's
I was going to say, Manny, that argument is right. That argument that you're making is right. However, I think the argument from our fans that are pro-Dyche, they're saying that it's actually what we need right now. We're not saying that we want Dyche for 10 years, but we think we need him now. Let me go to Kate, just to finish up this discussion, Kate. Where's your head at with it, Kate? Because, again, as I just said, I think a lot of fans are saying, yeah, we don't want Dyche for a long-term 10-year thing like he had at Burnley, however long it was, but he is probably what we need now. What would you say to that?
I think the first part of your question is a completely moot point because no manager stays forever. It's a complete moot point. The average tenure in the Premier League, I think, just tips over 2 years. I don't know what the Championship is, but football is so short-termism, so I think that's how you have to play it. I think if you go for the long game, you'll just get stung, and we tried to do that a little bit with Enzo. So if Dyche came in, I'd support him. I'm not saying it's the best pick for me, but I think we just have to think of the task at hand because there's little point for me thinking about next year's Premier League if we make it when the manager merry-go-round is constantly going anyway, and we might not get there. I feel like sometimes you just have to address the urgency in the here and now, especially with football. And if Dyche can come in and do that, then say Levy. I just want Rude out. That is my urgent thing that's in my head, because he has totally dismantled what was left of the good parts of our team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think everything is pointing towards Rude going.
But just to counter a point in the chat, by the way, not every manager gets sacked. Martin O'Neill got poached. Enzo got poached. The best managers get taken by bigger clubs because they've done a superb job. They don't get sacked.
Thomas Frank, Tottenham manager, right? Big
got
job.
Poached.
Brilliant.
Got poached.
Brilliant.
Didn't get sacked.
Right?
Got
hold on, Manny. Hold on.
Brøndby, one of the biggest clubs in Denmark, gets that job. What happened to him? He was deemed a failure. He got fucking sacked, mate. Every manager has a job where they don't fit the culture, where something goes wrong, and they get sacked. It's a natural part of the game. And so Maresca in 15 years' time will
My point is
the
best managers you have to pay compensation for because you want them to manage your job. And the managers that you pay zero for are rarely the ones who consistently will do a good job. You'll get the odd manager who will have a great season, odd 1 or 2 years. But consistently speaking, Brentford have a smaller attendance than us, but they're a mid-table Premier League club. Are they looking at Dyche? They're pretty good at set pieces. Are they looking at... Did Tottenham look at Dyche and say, well, he took Burnley to Europe. He could take us to way higher than that? No. Did they look at him? Did Sheffield United, who have Chris Wilder in charge, plays a pretty similar brand, has the similar Dyche style personnel? That would be continuation.
You know what
of his
Sheffield
way.
United did?
No,
they went who've been sacked 2 times, who've been sacked,
and they went for a young foreign
coach
coach who plays a completely different way. So
been an
nobody
assistant
else
at
wants the
Copenhagen,
reason.
like, I mean,
The reason
not
why
really
Dyche
that
is on the
exciting, is
shelf. The reason why Dyche is on the shelf is because nobody wants him.
Well, maybe Tottenham should have had him because they've won fuck all with the good managers that they've picked. Maybe they should have taken the punt on someone like
They just won a European trophy, Kate.
Oh, come on. That was... that's the diamond in the rough, and the rough has been big and long.
Yeah, I know, but they didn't win that. They didn't win that with Ange by kicking it long.
He still got fucking sacked.
Just one last point. I think in general it's just I don't like when using the point the manager has been sacked at a job to say they're not good enough. I would genuinely agree that normally you would find the right manager and you'd pay whatever it takes to get the right man in. If it's 10 million compensation for Thomas Frank if you're Brentford, or if it's £800,000 if it's Danny Roll from Sheffield Wednesday, if it's us, for example. Like whatever the case might be, I would normally agree that you find the right manager. If they're in a job, you poach them. But I'm just saying you shouldn't be writing someone off because they've been sacked in their career.
No, pause. Okay, pause. Pause for a minute. Pause for a minute. Let's think this through. Slow down. Everyone slow down. Let's think this through.
Honey, don't tell people to pause because that's rude.
No, but
that's rude.
You don't hold the remote control, FYI.
Look, he interrupts me enough, so okay, I'll rephrase it. Shut up, Doug. Okay. Listen, we know how he plays football. So we have one striker, right? Patson Daka, as it stands. We have one striker. We have Winks. We have Skip in midfield because we think Soumare and Ndidi are going to go.
Yeah.
Soumare and Ndidi are more physically strong midfielders. The more ones he would like. He plays Decore and Idrissa Gueye at Everton, for example, or Brownhill at Burnley previously. How are you going to hit a long ball to Daka and then have Harry Winks and Oliver Skip chasing up for the pieces? It's not going to work. Set pieces, Dyche is good at set pieces, good defensively, good attacking. We can't defend set pieces. We haven't been able to defend set pieces for about 5 years. We don't score from set pieces either. We have a completely different team to what Dyche would be looking for, because from Brendan onwards, we've tried to play a different way. And then just the last thing I'll say before I'll let someone else jump in is you lot are saying all these things now, but when you see Fatawu and Monga and Mavididi on the bench, and Ayew and Cordova-Reid starting on the wings, then you will change your tune.
I still think we've got Rude in charge.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're going to segue in just. I just want to bring some of the comments up because there's a lot of comments about this, and then we are going to segue nicely. So, I mean, Zayd says Ranieri got sacked after we won the league, brother. Come on. Travel6 says, as much as I don't like Manny's points, he's right. Dyche has been available for a while now and has been, and there's been a lot of opportunities. I mean, Southampton have chosen Will Still. I'm sure they could have got Dyche as well, right? Dyche is like a square peg going into the round LCFC hole. He's not right for us. I mean, my worry, Jacob said yesterday that when Dyche goes into a team, he's going to try. He's going to play what suits the team. But the problem, I think, is what team he then builds. And I think that's one of Manny's biggest worries as well. I what team will he build?
I mean, at the end of the day, me and Manny are on the same side. None of us realistically want Dyche to come in and join us. I just think I'm seeing... It's about this talk. Like at the end of the day, we're a club with a looming points deduction, a potential embargo, and we're complaining about a manager who'd certainly do a solid job at us. He would not be the future. He would not be... As I said, the ambitious assignment that got me off my feet saying this is so exciting, but I think for sure he would do a better job. And I think a point as well, I've watched them in the Premier League and it's been fucking boring, but they've gotten points. But from what I heard from Jacob yesterday on the show, when he was in the Championship, they played more attacking, they played differently, they didn't just play the standard 4-4-2. And I'm going to be honest, I can't either verify or deny that because I didn't watch Burnley back in 15-16 when they got promoted, or back when they got promoted when we got promoted as well, back in, I believe, the 13-14 season, as second place under Sean Dyche. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I know how they played in the Championship, but by someone who, by all accounts should know, who's a fan of Burnley, it sounds like it was more interesting than the basic 4-4-2. And, that does, at the very least, give me some hope that if he comes in, it won't just be sitting back, defending the V in front of the goal, and then praying you can hold off a 0-0 draws against Preston North End.
So this is the segue. Prepare yourselves, guys. I'm going to be coming to you first, Kate. This is the segue. Sean Dyche, the average age of Sean Dyche's starting 11s at Burnley and Everton, 29 and 28.7. So they're the average ages of his starting 11s. And the reason I bring that up is because I want to talk about I'm not picking my nose. I'm just like this. Don't worry, I'm not picking my nose, Kevin. The reason I'm segueing here, I want to talk about the youth. Some of the youth players, some of the younger players that we have in the Leicester City squad. And Kate, I think we're all in agreement. We have a few players in that squad, in and around the first team, that look exciting, that look like they're not too far away from the first team, which is the most important thing. And I think we all agree that we need to start focusing on the youth a bit more, which we don't think will happen with Dyche. So, which ones, Kate, is the question for you? Which I'm getting there. Which ones are you most excited for going into this season? Because we've got the likes of Nelson, Monga, Alves, Aluko, Jake Evans. You know, we do have a few of them. So which ones are you most excited to see this season?
Simply because of their maturity and sort of preparation, I'd say for me it's going to be Nelson and Alves, because I think they're the most ready. I think Monga, I know he's getting everybody excited, and from what we've seen, he's got maturity beyond his years, but he's still not quite 16. So I think he is perhaps still a bit of a way away from, you know, really taking someone's place in the team on a regular basis. But I think Nelson and Alves have now done their legwork. I think they've had really good stints at championship clubs where they'll now be playing. And they're the right age. I think it's now or never for the both of them, really, because if they're not going to make it this year, we need to probably look at selling them. So for me, they're the chicks that are ready to flee the nest. And the other ones are still a little bit young, and a little bit immature, I suppose want to say, and inexperienced. But I think Monger will start to feature heavily because we've signed him, we've made a big deal of him, but I just don't think it will be as much as what the fans want. But Nelson, for me, I mean, our back four is just ropey. That is a kind word for it. So to have someone like Nelson step in would be great. And Alves is just so exciting to watch. His ball skills, it would be so complimentary to have him and Bilal on the pitch, because they've got the same kind of ability, really. So they're the two for me that I'm most excited about, because I think they're ready.
Yeah. Over to you, Manny. Which ones, mate? Which ones excite you? Try not to talk about Dyche.
I'm still annoyed by it because, you know, we've spent £100 million on Seagrave, and a large part of that project is to become a youth development centre of some of the cream talent that we can find, and ideally internationally as well. So you teach these kids from a young age all the way through their teen years to play football, a relatively sort of standard passing style, a lot of technique, a lot of control, a lot of touching, a lot of movement, a lot of tight spaces. And then you look at the boss at the end of it all and you're thinking, I'm not going to get on the pitch. So what is the point of talking to these kids? He's not going to play somebody who's skinny, a little bit physically, a bit weak, but he's good on the ball. That's not what he prioritises. You have to be strong. You have to be robust. That's how we will keep clean sheets under Dyche. It's not, you know, as if I'm saying that Dyche is not going to potentially take us up. I would expect him to take us up. But I think we can go up a multitude of different ways. And since we bring that back to our youth, look at our specific youth and look what their talents are. Monga is a dribbler. Jake Evans is pacey finisher. Ben Nelson is a cultured centre-back, not just a physically strong one. So if we are supposed to utilise our youth and give these kids a chance, then you have to give them the right environment, the right setup, the right belief. And for all the odd chat someone might say about Dwight McNeil, the averages will tell you this guy does not give youth en masse a chance. So how does that link up? We've said repeatedly this season there's not joined up thinking. And this is another example where there's just not joined up thinking.
But on the contrary to that, Dyche wouldn't be the only one who hasn't picked Alves and Nelson. Like Enzo tried Nelson and then just didn't bother. Like, you know, and he's apparently the messiah in terms of some of the names that were banding around here. Like, none of them have tried them.
Yeah, but Enzo had like 40 million to spend, so he could bring in some more talent.
You're talking about Seagrave and being £100 million asset and not producing the fruit. They produced the fruit, and even Enzo was like, "No, thanks. I'd rather spend money."
Nelson was in his very first year of development. Then that was 2 years ago.
This is the Monga situation, though, isn't it?
Everyone's different, though, isn't it? Was everyone saying that Ben Nelson is ready for immediately to play 46 games that season? No, but we do think Jeremy Monga is ready to play next season.
Better than the shit that we're putting out.
I agree I agree with what Kate's saying though, because when Nelson came in, he did impress, and I think a lot of fans were happy with seeing more of him. Go on, Doc.
I'll say I think it's a bit of, it wasn't completely bloated with young players, the squad under Enzo, but I think he did a fairly good job of playing younger players. The one time I was in Leicester, I got to watch Ben Nelson play. He just signed an extension before I came, right? I think we have to remember for Tabu, it was very young then. There were minutes. Ian Reike, who's now no longer at the club, got a start in the FA Cup in the FA Cup round of 16 against Bournemouth. Stolasic, one from our academy as well, right? Got plenty of playing time and was not afraid to play him.
Casey came back from Wimbledon.
McAteer as well. Wanya Marcel got 8 games under Enzo Maresca as well, scored a goal, signed an extension. I think he did a decent job. I think, Kate, that it wasn't, this exuberant. We have these youth kids who are starting week in, week out, because as the season progressed, except for Ben Nelson, who then played a bit of a part, it was more the veterans he relied on. But I definitely think, it's about a balance, right? You can't just throw all kids in there. And I do believe that Manny is right in the sense that some of the players wasn't as developed back then, right? You had Alves. Alves was under his heavy injury back then. Or was still returning from it. The same for Sammy Braybrook. They were all both were under the ACLs or whatever they happened to them in the U21 game. So I think he did all right with the youth, to be fair. But I also think many saying the fact that Sean Dyche never gets debut to youth players is also, a bit shambolic, because he has given some throughout his career. Just looking at the stats, there are definitely more than just Dwight McNeil. And saying he only plays physical players is also just wrong. He loaned in a skinny Danish kid from Napoli, Jesper Lindstrøm, and praised him for his defensive work because his work rate was there to defend. He's skinnier than Jeremy Monga at 23, Jesper Lindstrøm, and he still played plenty under Sean Dyche and helped out defensively. So
why is age averages so high then, Doug?
Because he has Ashley Young on left back who's 35, mate.
Correct. So having 1 or 2 youth players out of 11 is not a good enough example of him playing youth. We don't want 1 or 2. We want 6, 7, maybe even 8. We don't want 1 or 2. So you can think of Dwight McNeil, but if I asked you to name a second one in the next 10 seconds, you can't come up with one in his 10 years of management.
He gave Harrison Armstrong his debut this season.
Who is that? I've never heard of this guy.
No, shut up, Manny, because there'll be some people that say, who the fuck is Will Alves, mate? If you ask an Everton fan.
And what I'm saying as well is, I think Burnley Academy, mate, they must be horrible. How much youth talent do they develop? We have a golden generation on the cusp by the sounds of things, right? From what you hear everyone in and around the academy. And we can see a bit of it as well, right? Monger was able to follow in the Premier League, keep up, beat his man at 15. We have some great players on the cusp of breaking through. I think, didn't he give Tarkowski his debut when he was 21 as well? He's not afraid to play at 21.
He signed him.
Yeah, but he played him at 21 in the beginning. Like, he's not afraid to play them if they're good enough. And again, I'm not for Sean Dyche. I would like anyone else. I just don't think we should be disingenuous with our points about what they're doing and how they are. Because, at the end of the day, I think Sean Dyche, in his history, has done a solid job at Burnley, keeping them up for so long.
We are not Burnley. We have.
Yeah, we want more, of course.
Our ambition should not be the same as Burnley's.
But we're now in the championship with the points.
It doesn't matter. Well, then you're thinking again. Then it's short-termism. You're just thinking about today. We're in the championship today.
All is short-termism. We've just covered that.
That's not how you grow a club. You don't grow it with short-term thinking. That's what we have been doing. We had short-term thinking with Dean Smith. Short-term thinking, unfortunately, with Enzo because he left. Short-term thinking again.
We don't. Thinking, though.
It is short-term thinking if you don't have consistency in the style of play because you're just zipping from one short-term solution.
Did you say Dean Smith?
Well, he was there for 7 games, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it was a firefight. You can't use that as short-term thinking.
No, what I'm saying is they could have said, "Oh, we like the way he's playing," and people saying Dean Smith would have kept us up. Let's give him the job. They went in a different direction.
Didn't. Well, exactly. So it weren't short-term thinking.
It was because they're jumping from one style to the next style to the next style. There's no long-term thinking across the managers that shows that there's some kind of long-term thinking there. And with players that you buy, 1 minute you're buying talented youth, next minute you're buying Ayus and Bobby Cordova-Reeds and the rest of the geriatric Dad's Army Brigade. It's not joined-up thinking. It's a mishmash.
Right. I want to... everyone's full of spunk this morning, aren't they? Everyone's full of spunk. Jesus. Okay, so Doc, let me ask you, mate, about Jeremy Monga. Now, I was scrolling through the Twitter sphere or the X sphere, whatever you want to fucking call it these days, and I came across I came across a thread, and there were people, Leicester fans, talking about whether we should actually loan out Jeremy Monger. Now, I can understand where they're coming from a certain degree because, 46 games for the lad, somewhere else in the Championship or League One, whatever. I suppose that could be good for his development. But would you rather? Because I think I would rather keep him at Leicester so that we can keep an eye on him. We can decide how many games he plays. We can make sure that he's playing in the right teams and all of that. What would you? Would you ever think about loaning him out?
No, I mean, why would you, right? I think he showed that he could, add something to a Premier League squad at 15, being able to very, eagerly take on his man. And I didn't think he looked out of place when he played for us in those short cameos. I'm not saying he should start 46 games because at the age of 16, I don't think anyone should be starting 46 games. I think that's way too much. But he should be, he should have a role in the squad. I mean, he should just be, he should be playing 30 minutes here, maybe getting a start in the cup, then playing, a half at the next, and then getting a start a few games as well. I think he has something to add to the Championship, and he'll definitely get his chance to show it. But, there are many other youth talents who I also want to see as well, especially up front, right? Jake Evans, Will Alves, Michael Golding, the list goes on. So I want them all to have game time, and I think Jeremy Monga is the most, alongside Will Alves, the most obvious ones right now who'll get minutes. But I don't think they will be starting every game, and I think they'll be, taken nicely care of and make sure they progress without overworking themselves at too young of an age.
Yeah, Manny, over to you. Manny, over to you. Sorry, I'm not with it today. Will Alves and Monger. I mean, we've just found out. I've just seen here that you have to be 17 to be loaned out, so that wipes that idea out. But Will Alves, I don't want to be harsh, and I don't want to just pull this out of nowhere, but I'm not sure he's good enough to play for Leicester yet. I don't know. I haven't seen loads of him, but he went to Cardiff, and I saw some people say that he did well. He did good there. But every time I saw bloody comments from Cardiff fans, they said he was crap.
They got relegated, mate. Of course, they're mad and annoyed. Of course.
Would you keep him? We know he's not going to start, Manny. Basically, is my point. Would you loan him out again? What would you do with him? Is my question.
I don't think there's any point in loaning him out again, particularly if we're not going to have a high player turnover. We're trying to get players out the door, which should be our primary focus. If I'm honest, I've never really seen much of the player himself, so I can't really pass comment on how I feel about him. I can't say I like him. I can't say I don't like him. I've just not seen enough for me to really take a decent judgment. So it's probably not the right person to ask. It's unusual for me. I don't really have an opinion on Will Alves, apart from everybody seems to think that he's talented and he has some kind of value, but I need to see him play. So I would at least like to see him in pre-season a few times and see how he gets on before I make any kind of judgment.
Kate, Will Alves. I mean, there's a few comments here which are true, that when he came through and made his debut under Rodgers, he looked good. I want to say it was Watford in the FA Cup. I want to say it was. I'm not 100%. Yeah, I think it was Watford, but he came on and he did look really good. He looked confident, and I think Rodgers even said, because he did a few step overs and stuff, and I think Rodgers made a comment about that. But of course, he has been plagued, with a really, I think 2 really bad injuries, which of course has stopped his development a little bit. But do you think he's ready to come in now this season? Because you think of Casey. If you told me the summer we got relegated, that Casey McAteer was going to come into the starting 11 and kind of play quite a lot of games and score some goals, I would have said no chance. I didn't think he was ready to do that, and I was wrong on that. In that case, what do you think about Will Alves? Do you think he could play a part in the first team, either off the bench or starting?
Yeah, I think so, because I think he's done all the groundwork, and I think this is the only way that you're going to see if he cuts it or not. And if he doesn't, and he's not sort of at it in the early stages of the season, then you think about whether you actually want to keep him on a long-term basis. But he is ready to be tried for Leicester, I think now. Like, I think he's got really good ball control. He's great with the ball, like Bilal, and I think that is one of the few players that have that in our team. And I think we need to make a little bit more of that to try and get some balls forward in the transition quicker. And it's just now or never. There's no point hanging on to him when he's also had a loan out already in the same division, albeit it was a team in dire need of some magic because they ended up getting relegated. And that's a high pressure and high tempo cauldron to go into as a player. But I think it's now or never for him. That's why I think he's the most ready with Ben Nelson. And it is just now or never. And if we play him and he's not where we want him to be, then we sell him. And that's the decision made. And it's the line in the sand for him. We can't keep procrastinating about him all the time. It's lengthy and it's expensive.
He is at that age now where he has to be able to play first team football for us, right? 2021. Like, if you're from, obviously there are late developers. I think Casey was around that same age a few years ago, right? And I watched, I think, the first 5 games. Like, every time he came on or started for Cardiff, I watched. I thought he looked championship level. I think he looked ready to play in the championship. The left wing, he definitely played well for most of the parts. I think he had a decent output as well. I think it's understandable the Cardiff fans are angry because the whole team let them down, right? He obviously they're disappointed they got relegated in a season where they think they shouldn't be relegated. So everything's a bit shit. I remember his debut, people were saying, how much would it take for them to buy him off us? So of course the word changes quickly. From what I saw, he looked sometimes maybe a bit too much of a ball hogger, right? Really holding on, doing the step up was a bit too fancy, which maybe I think the Cardiff fans didn't like when they needed that goal to try and stay up. But he had a decent output. He's fast. He's rapid. He's good on the ball. And I think he should play the second fiddle to Mavididi, right? Mavididi should be starting most of the games. Get Alves on for the last 20, 30 minutes and see if he can maybe even over time try and overtake Stefan Mavididi for the starting spot.
Yeah, I mean, Manny, Boz says here, agree with Kate, we don't need Alves to be another winger. We need attacking midfield depth. I mean, we're assuming, Manny, that Bilal will leave the club this summer. It started off a little bit quiet. I've seen now over the last couple of days, Arsenal, talks, little rumours and stuff that they're interested. But in my opinion, he is going to leave. So Alves probably would be. I know you said you haven't seen much of him, but it's youth and it's depth in that role, and he can play there. So maybe it is worth keeping him round.
I mean, I don't think there's any pressing need to sell him unless, again, it depends if somebody comes in. If Cardiff come in, they got relegated and they want to spend £7-8 million on Will Alves, then, I mean, I don't know if that's an appropriate price, to be honest. I just picked a number out of thin air because I can't judge the play yet. But let's say that there's a number that excites you, that you think is probably a bit more, or you could do with that money. Then, yeah, in the real world, you probably have to let him go. But this season is probably his season, particularly the scenario, particularly as we need a turnover of players, particularly if we've been saying give the youth a chance. That means let's give the youth a chance. So give the kid a chance, at least pre-season. I'd like to see him in 3-4 games and say, look, if you play well enough, then you will be considered for our first team squad, like was said behind Mavididi. But if you start to struggle, then we're going to look to maybe then look at another loan or a transfer.
Yeah, I think it's worth remembering as well, in the attacking midfield depth right now, we have Michael Golding, and according to Monger himself, he prefers the number 10, although we have seen him on the wings, right? So that would essentially be 2.
He's a 10. Monga's a 10.
He says he wants to be a 10, but we have seen him on the wing, so he can do that as well. But I want, at the end of the day, if Bilal Kanouche leaves, you have a guy who wants to be, prefers to be a number 10, who's gotten game time in the Premier League, and you've got the wonder kid we bought from Chelsea for £5 million as the 2 backup options. Although I think you should supplement that with someone who, is proven to be able to do the level, and then the 2 kids can share the game time other than that.
I think the one thing I would say is that we've got a lot of players that we keep talking about. He needs game time. Golding needs game time. Casey needs game time. Alves needs game time. Monga needs game time. Fatawu needs game time. Mavididi should start. All of these players can't start. We are going to have to lose some of them. We just can't keep everybody because we would like to. So we've actually got we haven't even mentioned Reed and Ayew yet. We've potentially got 4 players for left wing, 4 players for right wing. That's overkill. Obviously, I think I would like to get rid of Ayew and Reed, although Sean Dyche would like to start those 2.
Shut up.
I know. I'm just bagging. So some of these kids, you have to make a judgment. We can't keep everybody. We have to raise funds. So I know we've mentioned sort of previously on shows, somebody offers £10 million for Casey McAteer, sell him, because Casey McAteer, in my opinion, sell him. It's because he's not going to start above Monger. He's not going to start above.
They didn't offer 12 million, did they? Wasn't it like
No,
6 or
10.
7?
Well, he did start. He did start ahead of Monger, didn't he? In all of the games
and
at the end of the season.
Yeah, okay, he's 15. He's brand new, but another 6 months of development, another year of development. Monger's going to be 16, 16 and a half, 17. This guy is worth 10 million today. If he sits on our bench for 6 months, he's not worth 10 million anymore. So it's a tricky one. It's a player that Casey, like Alves, might be a situation that ideally you'd probably like to keep these players and give them those development chances. But because of our PSR situation, because of our alternatives in those areas, there might be players that you let go.
Kate, there's a name that keeps coming up in the comment section. Michael Golding. He was, I believe, a part of the Dewsbury Hall deal, basically the PSR shenanigans last summer, where I think he came in for 5 officially. One of them PSR deals that we keep seeing, but he's barely featured. He was apparently one of Chelsea's hottest prospects, one of them, not the best, of course. And he also, from his own mouth, I saw it in an interview, says that his preferred role is attacking midfield. I think we saw him. Did we see him for 10 seconds in one of the games towards the end of the season as well, or something like that? Seconds. And when he signed, Kate, he did just disappear, didn't he? Like we just never saw him. So would you at least like to see what he's got to offer this season, or do you think a loan deal is?
I feel like a loan deal might be beneficial. I think I saw on his Instagram page towards the end of the season that he said he was coming back from injury, but that injury was kept very quiet. He said something about so glad to be back, and he talked about an injury, which obviously has been kept really quiet. But he was used as a book cooker, and that's not his fault. But that was what he was used for. So I'm not sure if it was really just about trying to make the PSR stuff balance, and that was it. But yeah, he did kind of disappear for a bit. But he's still really young as well, and he's got little experience. So for me, he's obviously in that rung behind your Alveses and your Nelsons, because he's not had that loan deal. He's not played a lot of senior level football, and we need to get him doing that. And I don't think that will be for us. It might be in the cups, but I would loan him out and see what this kid's made of, because we just don't know. I don't think it would have ever been somebody that we scouted and thought, oh, do you know what? I wonder if we can get a cheeky 5 for that kid whilst we do the Dewsbury Hall deal. Like Michael Golding would have only come on the radar as the Dewsbury Hall deal was being made, I expect. So, like I say, he's a book cooker, and that's not his fault. But we need to figure out if he's good for us, probably by a loan.
Doc, Let me ask you, mate. So I'm just going to read some out to you here, which was from when Golding signed. And this was a Chelsea fan who watched a lot of the academy games. He said, coming through at under 16s, he was touted as the best of his age group. He is a hugely talented player. His best attribute is receiving on the turn. He's excellent in tight spaces, extremely nimble, great ball control, dribbler, 1-2s, and is a goal threat. Technically, he's top for his age. His long legs mean he can cover ground on the dribble pretty quickly and uses his arms well to evade pressure. He doesn't really dictate games, and in the build-up phase, he's often less impactful. Profile-wise, I'd say he's profile-wise, not quality. I'd say he's most similar to Musiala, but operates slightly deeper. He can play as a 10, but you wouldn't want him doing. You wouldn't want him playing on the wing. He is obviously young though, so there's no guarantee, but he will need to develop quite a lot physically as he is quite lanky, but he's a massive talent, captains his country at his age group, and Leicester fans should be very excited. So that was a year ago from a Chelsea fan. So it would be nice to see more of him.
Yeah, I think with the age he's at now, it is either that, let the coach see him in pre-season, see how they think about him, and if not, loan him out to League 2, League 1, or whatever, get some first team minutes in the legs of him. I'm excited by him. I know when we signed him, I spoke with my friend who's a Chelsea fan about him, and he was also very much, they were almost mad they gave up that best talent and got Dewsbury Hall in return because they didn't think he would be good enough, right? So he genuinely thought we won that trade deal. At the end of the day, of course, we lost our star player and our beloved, and gained someone who's got played 2 Premier League minutes. I think Golding, he looks bright. Sadly, though, from what Kate said as well, right? has had some injuries that just haven't been spoken very publicly about, and that could definitely have set him back. But yeah, I think when most likely Bilal leaves, there is that number 10 space that opens up. We have, to me, two youngsters who I want to see play there in Monga and Golding. I think you pick one of them who you think is most ready for first team football. That would be leaning Monga right now, considering how many minutes he got in the Prem. And then you sign someone, a more, I don't want to say veteran like Christian Eriksen, but a proven cam who can break open the lines against the deep blocks, who's got a great technical package, who Monga can learn from, and then you play those two and send Golding out on loan. Or if Golding is really impressive, and you think he's championship ready, you give him the chance.
Manny, you love moaning about Skip. You love moaning about Winks. So my question is, what about Sammy Braybrook? Now, I also think that Braybrook, obviously he's been, his development's been impacted by he had an ACL as well, right? I think. He went on loan to, was it Dundee? I think he went on loan to, or somewhere like that, and I think he came back after 6 months. I don't know if you know anything about that, Doug. Was he injured again? I'm not sure. But what do you think about Braybrook? Because we really haven't seen much at all of him. He was really highly spoken about, initially, and that seems to have teetered off again.
Sorry, was this
That's
me?
for you, Manny. Yeah.
No, look, we said this, didn't we? That you have a particularly bad injury, then players just don't come back the same. And when we first saw Braybrook come in, his passing looked really good. He looked like I think they were calling him the next Modric. He's small, diminutive. He could receive the ball, technically very good at great passer. Physically, there was obviously a problem. Speed was a problem. Strength was a problem. But he was like a young Harry Winks, let's say, would probably be a more accurate description. There is a worry why his career has stalled over the last year or two. Obviously, injury is the same thing. I actually think that this particular position, central midfield, I just think, unless the only way you can be small and effective in that position these days is if you're N'Golo Kante style, lightning rapid to the ball and an unbelievably good at winning the ball cleanly. And that's just not his play. He's more of a sort of quarterback position. And if you're going to do that role, like, say, Rodri does a bit, you have to be able to tackle too. So in the Premier League, which, again, I never talk about the Championship because that's just never where my eyes will be. Will always be what can work in the Premier League for us. And I just don't see that happening myself.
Kate, I just want to talk about. Just for some context here as well. Sean says that he went to Dundee on loan, but the manager wouldn't play him, so sent him back. And then Rye says Cartwright as well. Yeah, the problem, Rye, is we don't know enough about some of these players. I mean, I was going to say about Aluko as well. He's one to keep an eye on. We saw him against Bournemouth a little bit, but we just don't know enough about him yet. Maybe we'll actually look to get somebody on the show with us who watches, because I know there are some Leicester fans out there that watch the academy games like religiously. So we will try and get somebody on to talk to us about them. Kate, Jake Evans, I feel like, although he's not the forgotten man because we all talk about him, he has been in Monger's shadow slightly, from Rude as well, from Rude's point of view. He's actually the only one that hasn't yet signed the contract as we speak. I think Owen said it was close though. And with Jake Evans, I think Man United and Tottenham were both interested in him, and I think there was talk of was it £7 million or something like this, which for I don't know if he's 17 yet, but 16,
13
which
million.
is 13 million. There we go. Well, yeah. What about him, Kate? What do you think? Because I think Jake Evans has barely featured. He's featured even less than Monger and the others. It will be nice to get the deal signed, of course, but then the problem, Kate, the dilemma is what to do with him. Whether to send him out, although you can't do that till he's 17. Whether he just sticks around as a squad player, and as Manny said, we've got about 6 different wingers currently at the club.
Can he play striker though? He can, can't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be an option because we haven't got any strikers, and I say that on purpose because Patson Daka doesn't count. It might be something to consider for that option as well. But I can't really comment on him. I mean, the times that I've seen him, he came on for about 72 seconds against Brighton away, and it was just pathetic, that substitution, when it was crying out for them to come on much earlier to just see them. I mean, from a manager perspective, what's Ruud doing? He can't possibly make a proper judgment on them if he doesn't try them in real life, and he hasn't really done that very well. So I think Evans would be a potential striker for us, potentially. I mean, he is still so young. He's one that we could perhaps loan out again. But I've got a guy that I go to the football with, and he goes all the time to academy games and has done for probably the last 5 years. He's actually shied away from going to away games now because he prefers to do more academy stuff. And he has said, bearing in mind this guy's of a certain age, he watched Heskey in the academy, and he said Alves is the only one who's excited him since Heskey out of everybody else. So I don't know whether these guys are up to it. It might be that the things change and the skill set that you want, from comparing Heskey to now is a bit difficult because it's 20 years ago. So it's tough, isn't it? It's really tough to know. But we are at risk of, like you say, overloading in certain positions and having too many cooks. And we've got to make a decision. We need to be more cutthroat. I think that's a bit of a theme with Leicester, isn't it? Making some cutthroat decisions, being a bit ruthless, and being less procrastinating and analysis paralysis, or whatever you want to call it. You've got to make the decision at some point to get rid of these players to make room for others and let others grow.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, Doc, I'll come to you, mate. But Jake Evans scored 10 goals in 14 games in Premier League 2. He finished sixth on the goal scoring charts, but I think that was probably because he was pulled out of it, towards the end of the season.
He definitely has the highest goals per game, I think.
When he came into the first team, or the bench, he was like third in the goal scoring charts, and he is, I think, a right winger. But with Monga also being right wing for the youth team, I think he was playing more centrally. So
yeah, I mean, I think Jake Evans has been hyped up a lot, right? Sadly, it's not possible for someone like me to watch the youth games, although I would like to be given the chance to do so, right? If Leicester could start streaming those on their platform or whatever. Regardless, though, I think everything I've heard says he will sign, right? Owen Akinpalmer said it when the others were announced. Jake Evans is close. Rob Tanner said it recently on Jack's stream as well, that Jake Evans will sign. What I think is weird, I think this goes back to the club's communication, right? Because normally in an announcement like you saw last week or a few weeks ago now with the youngsters, you would see at the bottom, Jake Evans has also been offered a contract, and we, just to let us know that he is also in the works. And if they fail, then they fail. But, we should at the very least know the status, right? But everything that I'm hearing from the journalists, and let's hope they are right about it, is that he will sign, and then we'll see what role fits him. If he can work as the number 9, that would be great. Otherwise, we do have an issue with wingers because we simply have so many. And I want to say so many unproven, because there's a few of the old ones we don't really want in the championship. Then you've got a Fatawu coming back from a year-long injury, and then it's the youngsters, right? So I'm excited for all the wingers we have. I think it'll be a breakthrough year for many youngsters at Leicester, but I think some of them will have to bite the bullet and say, okay, I'm going out on loan, right? Taking one for the team, because otherwise the queue might be too long for minutes, and that could hurt the development.
Manny, Jake Evans, mate. I mean, sorry, there's an argument in the chat about his age. From the club's website and also Transfer Market, it says August the 21st, so he is still 16.
Again, you have to look at it in the round. I like Jake Evans. I like those numbers. From the little I've seen of him, I like the player. I don't want to loan him out to somebody else for a year and do a Ben Nelson. From what I've seen, he looks perfectly okay enough to be given game time at the moment. So you have your starter, who will be somebody else, and Jake Evans is given 15 minutes, 20 minutes, occasionally half an hour when there's a cup game or a different, it gets a start. We down the right hand side, obviously Fatawu is going to start, and if I want Monger to stay in the 10 role, so I would say to Jake Evans, if you like playing right wing, when Fatawu is not playing, it will be your shot. But what does that mean for someone like Casey? So that means to me, Casey's got to move on. He's not going to get game time. We can't give both of these guys game time down the right. Look, on the left-hand side, again, there's similar situations with Mavididi will be the starter. Who's going to be your reserve left wing? Decide who, maybe it's going to be Alves. So you keep Alves. That means Cordova-Reid has got to go, if anyone will take him. And so you have to decide on A, what style of play you want to play, and then if Jake Evans is suitable for that style of play, definitely keep him. However, if you pick a manager who's just going to say, yeah, we like Jake Evans, but he sits on the bench all season doing nothing, then that is a waste. These kids do need game time, not too much, but you need that right balance between first team football and rest time to make sure you don't overload them.
Boz says future is bright if we don't fuck it up. I wouldn't loan Evans. I'd rather keep him in the school. Yeah, we can't loan him until he's 17 anyway. Well, I suppose that's in August, so yeah, we could loan him.
I think so much of this goes back to the debates we've had for like the past month, because so many opinions will be more relevant when we know who the head coach will be, right? We know when the manager will be, what style they prefer, how many wingers will they play with, will they play with wing backs, all these theoretic things, right? About where do we need the depth and how and which players do we sell as well? Do we let Cordova-Reid go? Do we keep some of them? Do we get Harry Winks, Pupusimari off the books? Do we sell both our left backs? Like, there are so many things in terms of someone like Betty Luco, right? Is both Luke Thomas and VK going? Luke Thomas in his last year of the deal, VK definitely looking like he'll go. It's all about which spaces will open up, and once the transfer window is fully in effect, you could say, for Leicester and the manager's in place, it's so much easier for us to sit down and make, a 22-man squad, I want to say, with, a starter and a backup in every position. And then we can realistically see how much game time we can give to the youth. And if anyone needs to be looking for game time elsewhere on a loan, because at the end of the day, we want to be giving them more minutes. But if we have 3 youngsters wanting to play right wing and we have Fatawu starting ahead of them, they're not all going to be able to get 15 or 20 minutes here or there. So it's about, can we play you in another position? Can we find a loan for you where it's beneficial and it will benefit your development more than just training with the first team here? So many variables go into it, and it's so hard to realistically conclude right now because we know so little about what's going on.
Right, can I say, can I just butt in to say, look, I can make it really easy for the club. Fatawu starts right wing.
Of course.
Jake Evans is bench. Anyone else who wants to play right wing, sell them. So Casey can go. Aluko's coming through as your backup. Sell Luke Thomas. In 1 year's time, he's worth 0. You can get 5 million for him now. He's not worth 5 million quid to us for a season in the Championship. Sell him too. On the left-hand side, Mavididi's going to start. Who's going to be on the bench on the left-hand side? It'll have to be Alves. So sell Cordova-Reid. Sell Ayew. Golding will be your backup 10 to Monga. So between those two, that's a lot.
So you just want 2 wingers. You just want 2 wingers at the club.
No, 2 left wingers, 2 right wingers, 2 central players.
And what happens? What happens when one of the wingers gets injured and then there's only one left winger at the club?
Then you switch wingers. Like many wingers learn, it's actually good for you to learn more than one position, particularly when you're young. You never know when you might be needed. You've got to be adaptable.
I want to say that's why you use, if you have Jeremy Monga as your backup 10 and there's an injury on left wing, you play Jeremy Monga on left wing. Or let's say you keep Jordan Ayew because he has 1 year left and he can play striker and we have no strikers. Well, then Jordan Ayew all of a sudden gets a few minutes on the left wing because
they're
injuries.
I was with you until Ayew.
But you get the general premise, right? You have players who can play multiple positions. Injury happens. Well,
absolutely.
We don't have an injury in the 10. We can move Monga to the left wing.
Look, Jake Evans can play left. Jake Evans could play right. Jake Evans could maybe play emergency striker, and we could probably fill a hole at 10 if you really wanted. Michael Golding, we don't really know. He could play almost anywhere centrally. Monger could play anywhere across. He could play left wing, right wing, central. He already has played all 3. So you have to be multifaceted in the modern game. You can't just be pigeonholed and that's your position and that's it. I mean, Steve Cooper had Fatawu playing left back, didn't he?
Right
left wing back. In left wing back in one pre-season friendly.
No. That was.
Yeah, on the left. Yeah. Kate, if only it was as easy as Manny makes out, right? Oh, we need 2 left wingers, 2 right wingers, sell the rest.
Yeah, I mean, the purchasing bit I don't think is an issue. If it's to just quickly sell this guy and just quickly sell that guy. You cannot sell these players. You cannot sell players. It's so difficult. It's a buying market, not a selling market, and that's it. That you can't do that.
But we had offers. The ones I highlighted were Casey and Luke Thomas because we just had offers for them 5, 6 months ago.
At the end of the season, and he was one of our better players. Like you can't, you'd have left us high and dry.
He's got 1 year left on his contract. Either you give him a new contract or you lose him for free. If somebody offers you £5 million for Luke Thomas with 1 year left on your contract, you take the money.
You're putting JJ, you're putting Boyo Koulibaly, you're putting VK. You have 3 other options who are all better.
Well,
VK, no, come on.
But then you have James Justin's, Boyo Koulibaly.
You've got a JJ, Woyo, and you've got a Luko. A Luko's your third choice.
What is this?
What do we need Luke Thomas for? In a year, hold on, I was going to say, look, guys, look, we had this problem before by letting.
Sorry, Kate. Sorry, I interrupted you. I'm
going to want to interrupt everybody. Look, we let players go for free. How many times have we done this where we lose a player for free? We didn't cash in when they were of max value or anywhere near max value. We end up losing for free, and cumulative effect of doing these decisions puts you in the PSR hole we're in. When a player has value and he's not going to be useful for your first team, or you can replace him quite easily, you have to take him off your books and cash in.
Kate, as it was your time to speak, you can carry on if you want.
I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I mean, it's a buyer's market. It's not a selling market. If we could sell some of the players that we want to sell, and I'm not saying Luke Thomas isn't up there, but I'm saying you're leaving yourself high and dry. And for whatever reason, Koulibaly hasn't been good enough as he'd have played him. Like, you're making really large assumptions on players that we have never seen play regularly. You are making massive assumptions.
No, I'm making the assumption.
Manny, you're muted. Manny, you're muted.
Shut up, mate.
Manny, you're muted. You're doing a Graham. Manny, you're doing a Graham. You're doing a Graham. You're doing a Graham.
A lot of assumptions is what I'm saying. That everybody, these players that you mentioned, and the youth will just slide in and be good and get off the ground running. And I'm just saying that it doesn't work like that. And you can't just sell. If we could just sell Jordan Ayew or just sell Bobby De Cordova-Reid, I'd be all over it. But they didn't have a cancellation or cooling off period with those transfers. We couldn't send them back. And that's just reality. You can't just slide people in and think, well, they're going to be better because they've come through the youth, or they've had a few stepovers, or they look all right in the academy. That's not real life. And I'm just saying that Thomas, for me, I think I'd rather not have 5 million and keep him, because he has been a good reserve squad player that's come in and done a decent job. And I want to keep him, but I'm not saying that I want to sell him for 5 million when we don't know what the others are going to be like. We haven't even seen Woyo on the left.
Keeping your first choice left back, who's worth 5 million quid, and then losing him for free a year later, is financial madness for a club in our situation. You can't be that casual about £5 million like it's nothing.
Can when the debt's like 3 figures. 5 million is drop in the open. It doesn't make or break anything.
Well, what were we over by PSR? How much are we over by?
We don't know exactly, Manny, because that depends on the allowables losses, and that is actually, there are a few general rules that it's decided.
Let's never sell anybody. One day they might be useful for us. This guy has been with us for 6-7 years. He's been here 6-7 years, and he cannot nail down a first team starter spot.
Well, one thing is,
he's had 7 managers who've had a look at him, including 2 more in the Championship. Nobody's fancied him.
Well, there is one thing we do know. He did come in and improve on Victor. That's one thing. I
still don't believe that point, though. I still don't believe that point. He hasn't contributed to anything. He had one good game, though. I'll give him credit for his game against Liverpool. He did do very well there. But other than that, I think genuinely he might be one of the worst players we've had this season, Luke Thomas. He's horrible. I
genuinely think Victor has been worse than Thomas. I hate them both. I hate them both.
He's been shit too. But Luke Thomas is the only reason we didn't win against Brighton. He's the only reason. That we. I went back 3 years ago. I watched the highlights when we drew against Newcastle 0-0, and Luke Thomas was getting skinned left, right, and center. You should have taken 5 million. You should have said, fuck it, we do 3 as well. That's still a brilliant deal for us.
Right.
I think the general point that Kate is making is, obviously, we can't just throw the youth in there and expect them to, to swim. That is a genuinely good point. But I think in many cases, we would have to look at the options. You could have moved James Justin. We saw Woyo for 45 minutes against United there, and he looked all right. Badia Luko could have been, and that's from the academy, right? Could have been given a few more minutes as well. I would have liked that because both our left backs were so horrendous. I think we had many better options. And I'm going to be honest, I'm so tired of this Luke Thomas is a good player slander. He is horrible. He failed at Middlesbrough. He failed at Sheffield United. He's failed at Leicester. And he's, reason we've lost a few points this season. I'm not saying someone else hasn't been the reason for that, but there are many players who've been the reason we've lost points. Any warning?
Our fans are way too guilty of giving too much credence to the fact somebody is a local player. Like I love a local player, right? Of course, who doesn't? But they have to be good enough. Some players are good enough, like Harvey Barnes is good
the
enough.
local boys will come in and do a good job, by the way, without properly.
Would you mind not erupting this time, Kate? Sorry, but just you've had your turn.
Okay, Manny, go on.
Really annoying.
Little annoying.
Why is it even everyone's full of spunk today? Everyone's full of
spunk. Look, the bottom line is some local players are good enough, like Harvey Barnes and Bell Chilwell were good enough. Some players aren't good enough, like Hamza's not been good enough, and Luke Thomas is not good enough. It's not about being local or not being local. It's about being good enough or not being good enough. If Luke Thomas was a superb left back, we will be praising him. Jeremy Monger's local. We can see the talent. We love the kid. It's nothing ever personal. But this is also a particularly business decision. You are faced with two options. You either sell Thomas or you give him a new contract. Having him sitting him on the bench and rolling him out once every 5 games is such a dumb idea.
What you said there. What you said there, I think we can all agree on. You do either sell him or give him a new contract. It has to be one of those two things. Duck had me with his Thomas argument up until he brought Victor into it, and then he lost me. I just think they're both terrible. And
let's see who sells for more, mate. We know VK is worth 3 times more at least than Luke Thomas.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's not 5 times.
No, 3. I changed it to 3, mate. He's at the very least worth 3 times more. Luke Thomas is a wannabe left back. He probably is a sound bloke. Again, I'm not going to talk shit, but he's dog shit.
Well,
can you not see with your eyes? It's ghost defending. He doesn't mark his man tightly. He's the goals against Newcastle, not against Newcastle, and Nottingham Forest too. He just never gets close to his man, and that's why he never gets beaten, because he never takes the fucking duel. He's ghost defending, allowing crosses. He's the reason we conceded both goals against fucking. And I'm going on Twitter and I'm saying he's the best left back in the league. Like, what am I doing? What is my life?
Right. Two things. First thing. I spoke to Doc the other day and I said, "You're right, mate. What are you up to?" And he was genuinely watching Luke Thomas fail compilations.
I was watching Newcastle against Leicester City 0-0 highlights, because I remembered had Castagne scored that last chance after the free kick in the 92nd minute, we would have stayed in the Premier League. And then I was watching the whole highlights of the game, and there was a moment where Luke Thomas got nutmegged, gave away a massive chance. Then the ball came out back to him when Daniel Lewison played it out to him, and he slipped on the grass, gave away a throw-in, and yelled at the referee for not blowing in his favor. Like, it was just, and I wasn't even, intentionally looking for Luke Thomas slander. I mean, I think I get the point that VK hasn't had a good season. He's been shit as well. But what I really don't like is I go on Twitter and one of them is, the devil, and the other is, he's done really good for his job. They've both been shit. Fucking accepted.
Right. I'm going to end it on this, because Luke always tries to throw all of us under the bus with certain things. Aussie Luke, not Luke Thomas, Aussie Luke said on the transfer show the other day that he would keep Luke Thomas next season to play as a centre-back. A centre-back.
Okay. Take him out of the group chat. Never talk to him again. That's unbelievable. That is genuinely a red card ban for 5 years.
That group chat's going to be empty before you know it, by the way.
I think he took a few more punches to the brain. It wasn't just the eye the other day.
Right, we're going to end it there. We've gone over the usual time.
I just want to say a big thank you to Mark with a great point.
Here we fucking go.
After that interview with Tanner the other day, when Tanner specified that Top particularly liked the passing style. That's why, even though you riled me up with Dyche and you baited me earlier on, I'm not too worried, because Top...
There was no bait.
Yeah, you and the chat came for me this morning. He likes passing football, Top does. So if that is true, and Rudkin isn't given the appointment, then I'm hopeful that all these kids that we've just spoken about for the last half an hour will get their game time next season. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I can't show that because it's Premier League, Doc, because it's Premier League. Mate. Sorry.
Mate. It's public knowledge, No, well, the one thing I want to say, I think we've talked a bit about managers, right? And with what we're seeing, I think it's a very real point that we've talked so much about the higher-ups, Rudkin and Top. They don't seem to be in alignment about what we want to do. And I think that might be the cataclysmic mistake that we can make. If our two higher-ups are in completely different viewpoints of how the game should be played, the direction we want to go. Because according to the rumors, it's John Rutkin who's pushing for Sean Dyche, and Top, he's looking elsewhere. It's the same with Steve Cooper. John Rutkin, according to the rumors, was the one who wanted him. Top wasn't buying it, and as soon as things went wrong, he pulled the trigger. If we have two of our higher-ups who's not in agreement, we will never be successful. If they're pushing in their own direction, despite maybe both directions being good, it's not going to amount to anything. I think that's genuinely the most worrying part about those news, though.
Right. That's it. That's enough. Too much spunk on today's show, I think. But yeah, we'll see. We'll have a call-in show tomorrow night at 7 p.m. as always on a Monday, and Tuesday it'll be the Scouting Report Defenders edition. So that'll be fun. So thanks to Manny, thanks to Kate, thanks to Duck, thanks to Sean Dyche, and yeah, all of that good stuff. Hopefully we'll have some genuine, reliable manager news soon. But yeah, don't hold your breath. So cheers, guys. Cheers, everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.